Dr. Rupinder received his PhD degree in mechanical engineering in 2006 from Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala. Masters of Technology in 2001 and Bachelor of Technology in 99 from Punjab Technical University. He is Chartered Engineer by Institution of Engineers India and AICT Young Teacher Awardee, DST Young Scientist Awardee, UGC Research Awardee, and many more such awards he has got during his tenure of 20 years. Currently, he is professor at the Department of Mechanical Engineering, National Institute of Technical Teachers Training and Research, Chandigarh. He has more than 20 years of teaching and research experience in production and industrial engineering, with special emphasis in additive manufacturing or 3D printing, which is also called 3D printing, non conventional machining, and casting. He has guided 22 PhD and more than 100 master students, as well as coordinated 19 sponsored research projects amounting to around 3.5 crores. He has received several scientific awards, some of them I have just mentioned. He has worked as evaluator of projects for international research agencies as well as examiner of PhD thesis for many Indian universities. He is the guest editor for several international journals, book editors, and advisor for many international conferences. In addition, he has also published as author and co-author more than 20 monographs, 85 book chapters, and 550 articles in journals and conferences, out of which more than 350 are SCI only. So if I go on reading his profile, almost it will take half of the session. So with this brief introduction, now I invite Professor Rupinder Singh to take over the session, and I thank him for accepting our invitation to be part of this STC. Over to Rupinder sir.
Thank you, Professor Devinder Singh ji, for this opportunity. This is really a wonderful experience to be the part of this program, as there will be a lot of people from interdisciplinary research group, and there will be really good for learning. It's a learning experience. As a typical mechanical engineering application, we are really interested in seeing the aspect of communication, electronics, antenna design, and all these things. I'm really thankful from the core of my heart to give me an opportunity for this program. Special thanks to the coordinator, Professor Balwinder, and Professor Gill for this opportunity. So, dear friends, let us start the discussion. I have been given a task to introduce about the use of 3D printing in the area of antenna design. But before I go for the antenna design, I would like to start with some of the basics, and then I will try to explain some of the aspect of antenna design using 3D printing that we are working in close collaboration with our friends from the electronics department. I think the screen is visible. Is the screen visible? Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. So, dear friends, let us start the discussion for today. I will be talking about the antenna as a typical sensor application. You know, from the electronics engineering point of view, you may have the different way of looking into the things, like you may be interested in gain, you may be interested in some epsilon r, you may be interested in some tan delta value once you go for the antenna design. But if I am interested in the development of a product, I have to see many other aspects. So the one of the most common or the basic aspect is the material consideration, right? And if you talk about the design of the antenna, specifically using a 3D printing, most of the time we are dependent upon the material with a acceptable value of epsilon r and tan delta, and that material is imported, right? Our consideration as a material processing engineer is to customize this antenna typically for the 3D and 4D applications. So this particular talk that we are going to have in next one and a half hour, we will be talking on the in-house development of some substrate material, typically for the sensor application, maybe for acting as a receiver, or like a typical antenna. So I'm either receiving or getting something transmitted. So we will see how to make this material in-house, low cost, how I can customize, how I can control some surface roughness features, how I can control some of the features like the porosity, and these type of things we will see from the very basic of the 3D print. So let us start the discussion. This is just the overview of the 3D printing. This I have taken from the Chang and Chua paper, Journal of Advanced Manufacturing Technology 2005. So what this basically flowchart says, the rapid prototyping, which is of course nowadays is also very commonly called additive manufacturing or 3D printing. These are some of the overlapped words, but this is basically rapid prototyping is categorized into three types. One is additive type, another is subtractive type, and the common is the combination of additive and subtractive, right? Let us say I am interested in developing some patch as a substrate for 3D printing. I can make it with some additive process. I can make it with some subtractive process, which is very common. Subtractive means I have a larger block of material, like we are working on, some of the imported materials, and I cut it according to my requirement. So that is subtraction, right? Or I can add some material layer by layer I am joining, or there can be the combination of additive and subtractive. So broadly, the prototyping or rapid prototyping is subcategorized into three types: subtractive, additive, and combination of additive and subtractive. And there are number of technologies which are further in these categories of additive, then combination of additive and subtractive, as well as subtractive. Like if I typically talk about the subtractive manufacturing, which is quite common from last 4 decades, this involves NC and CNC machines. I think all the engineering colleges or the polytechnic colleges across the world, they are using this CNC or NC machining. Even the medium scale or small scale industry, they are working on this. Either I am interested in mechanical product or I am interested in some hybrid product of electronics based, electrical based. This is very common, right? If I talk about the additive, it may involve the technology which is based upon some layer by layer deposition using some liquid base, some powder base, or some sheet based. And there are number of technologies under this like stereolithography and digital light processing, inkjet printing, fuse deposition modeling, selective laser sintering, LOM, laminated object manufacturing, 3D printing. So there are number of technologies. And if you see broadly, uh, we have more than 30 plus commercial 3D printing based technologies, which are really competitive, and they have already defined application, one or two, which can be really used for some typical applications, right? So for the beginners, this is just the overview. In a typical 3D printing process, I have some data which is in the form of CAD file. That file is given to some machine which I am calling as a 3D printer. It is looking like a photocopier, and the output of this 3D printer is a 3D printed object. Now, this 3D printed object can be a functional part, it may be a non-functional part, it can be used for n number of applications. Nowadays, I think there is hardly any field which is not using the benefit of this 3D printing. So by definition, I have the material deposition layer by layer using some CAD model, and then I transform this into some cross section which are still virtual, and then these cross sections are deposited in a physical space one after the another till I got a finished product. So this is another diagrammatical representation. So this additive manufacturing or 3D printing is basically a digital design. So I deposit some layer by layer, and finally I get a 3D printed part. Now here the successive layer bonding to the preceding layer, it may be they are in the partially melted form or fully melted form. Then we have a build platform till we get a 3D printed part, right? So this is, I think, quite common. We are really comfortable with the 3D printing. Am I clearly audible, please? Am I audible? Dear friends, is it audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
You are audible, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir, audible, sir.
Great, great, great. Okay, now we see the little extension of 3D printing that is called the 4D printing. Even we are nowadays talking about 5D printing and 6D printing. Why I am talking on these? Because we are going to use this basic things for the development of some sensors, which for the typical electronic people we call it as a antenna, right? Now, what is 4D printing? So, 4D printing is basically the printing of some smart material. Uh, this is basically a 3D printing only, but this is the the 3D printed part under the effect of some stimulus uh, is 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 behaving like it may grow, it may shrink like that way. To understand this in a simple way, let us take the example of a sunflower. Like in nature, so there is a sunrise, then the sunflower always faces towards the sun, and as there is a movement of earth around the sun, the sunflower always faces towards the sun, right? So that means there is some stimulus which is in the form of sunlight. So once that stimulus is put on that object, which is a sunflower, right, because of that stimulus there is some angular movement, there can be some up or down movement. Similarly, there are some flowers in nature which open up during the period of sunrise. So once there is a sunset time, again it closes down, right? So this is very common feature, right? So that means the nature is also inspired by different stimulus. So if I select a particular material and a suitable stimulus, I can control the movement, I can control the dimension, I can control maybe the color, I can control maybe some other parameters like smell, something like that. So what we are interested is, if I print a some 3D component, and then as a function of time, means as the time is passing, I am using some stimulus. That stimulus is either helping it to grow or to expand or contract or change in color, change in angle, some angular movement can be there, right? So this is the really one of the basic requirement of using some stimulus to increase the some of the capabilities of some 3D printed part. I'll give you one more example to understand in a simple way. We have a quartz crystal, right, which is considered as a piezoelectric material. Now, if you apply a load on a quartz crystal, there is a increase in length. Now, once you release the load, it will come back to the original length. So you put a load, you release a load. Number of time if you do this exercise, applying a load, releasing a load, it will come back to the original dimension, right? So now similarly, if let us say I print some component, 3D printed component, and it is has been printed by using this type of material only, so it will behave in a similar manner. Like for example, we have a polymer called PVDF, polyvinyl difluoride. So this material is also having a piezo property. Let us suppose I printed a part, 3D printed part. Now I apply a stimulus. The stimulus for this material is the voltage, right? So once I apply a voltage, this PVDF material is converting from alpha phase to beta phase. So what is alpha phase? Basically, it is having a carbon-carbon chain, and alternative there are hydrogen and fluorine. So once I apply a high voltage, what happens? All the hydrogens are aligned on one side of the carbon chain and all fluorine on the other side of the carbon chain. So this conversion is called alpha to beta phase conversion. So once there is alpha to beta phase conversion, then there is a development of some van der Waals forces. And once we have that case, then we experience that there is a contraction. So similarly, if you again change the voltage to zero, right? It will again get converted into the alpha phase. So I have a stimulus in this case as a voltage, right? So that stimulus for this material is converting the material from one phase to another phase. Now just think of a antenna or a sensor where I can change the behavior. I can have a significant improvement in tan delta. I can have a significant improvement in its epsilon r. which will be helping in controlling the desired property of that particular sensor, right? So 4D printing is again this is the printing in 3D only. So after solidification, it is triggered by some stimulus, and we are getting some smart behavior. So what I say, this is the extension of the 3D printing, but we are interested in using a different type of the stimulus. So what can be the reason of this smartness? There can be some intrinsic property of the material. There can be the extrinsic property. Like intrinsic property, I have already explained the example of a PVDF. In case of the PVDF crystal, if you apply a load or you apply a high voltage, it is converting from alpha to beta phase. That is the intrinsic property of the material, right? Now, take another example. Let us say I am interested in thermal or electrical conductivity of the polymers. So that is actually not there, right? So suppose I want to add that property into the material. So what I do some sort of a reinforcement. Like I can reinforce graphene, I can reinforce some copper or aluminium powder, which help me to increase the thermal or the electrical conductivity of the material. If we do something like that, so this is basically the increasing the property of that material through extrinsic means. So it is based on the external factors. So broad classification, intrinsic type and extrinsic type. In intrinsic, there can be properties like self-expansion, self-contraction, similar example of quartz or PVDF. Then if you are interested in adding some property, there is an example of reinforced material, like I am using some reinforcement of copper or graphene or aluminium to basically increase the thermal or electrical conductivity of the material. Then there is another type of material that is called the metamaterial. This may be some of the new concept for some of us. This is quite common in civil structures, right? So metamaterial basically is a outcome of some angle and the length of the links through which some material has been developed, right? Or it has been fabricated, some component has been developed, right? Now the strength of the material is not because strength of that particular part, functional part, is not because of the strength of the material, but how the material has been fabricated. What is the length of the link? What is the angle of the link? That is really important. I give you one example to understand this concept. Uh, in some of the geographical locations where there is a lot of seismic movement and we have a chances of the earthquake, right? So what they actually do for the construction of the multi-story buildings, they normally put in the basement some meta material mesh of material like titanium, right? So which basically helps to absorb that large variation of earth movement, and the superstructure over it is basically safe, right? So there is a typical concept called origami structure and origami structure. These are some of the Japanese concepts that has been used. Now the similar concept from the civil engineering is now being used for printing the functional part, so that it can take absorb large vibration. Like you are interested in developing some sensor for high vibration applications, right? So but with the effect of vibration, there should not be any disturbance in the transmission of the signal. So we can use the substrate which can basically absorb or dampen those vibrations better, and then we can think of using a concept like a metamaterial, right? So this is the broad classification of the 4D printed part. Now there is another important thing. Suppose I am interested in 4D printed antenna. There is a concept of programming that particular antenna through the programming of the substrate, right? Suppose I have a material in, let us say this is substrate material for your antenna. I give some stimulus to it, right? It is converting from state A to state B. Then I give another stimulus. It is coming again to the state A. This is called one-way programming. This is a one-way programming. There is another two-way programming, like the material is in the state A, you are converting it into the state B. So I have a stimulus on and stimulus off type. Take the example, and let us say the stimulus for some material is current, right, or the voltage. If I increase the current or I increase the voltage or decrease the voltage, right, so the material is converting from state A to the state B. and this is reversible. If this is the case, this is we can use a two-way programming. Now the stimulus can be different, right? So let us say I'm interested in converting from material from stage A to A1, then A1 to A2, then A2 to maybe multi-stages. So I can have a single stimulus or I can have a multiple stimulus. Let us understand the application for this. Suppose I have some heritage structure and I am interested in getting some real-time data that somebody is not damaging that structure, and every time I'm not able to be physical present or that way. So I am putting some sensors, right, in that structure. So let us say somebody is trying to uh, let us say harm that structure by applying some load or some force that will act as a stimulus. So once that stimulus is activated, right, so it will be emitting some signal to me, and I will come to know, okay, this level of force has been there. So this is an alarming situation. So similarly, if there is a, let us say, the effect of some temperature is there, or effect of some carbonation is there, like there is a very common thing in big cities like Delhi or and other big cities. We have a problem with the acid rain. So basically, there is a carbonic acid, right? So that carbonic acid is a really a big threat to for these type of these structures. So I can have a stimulus, right, which will be activated once the carbonic acid is there, and it will give me information. Okay, now some sudden shielding is required for this type of structure. So for the typical sensor application, this 4D printing and its programming is going to be there. Going to be used in a big way in coming 2 to 3 years. Now I am going to explain some of the basics of 3D printing, and then we will see the 4D printing and as an application. And finally, we will like to come up with one antenna, and we will try to see some of the parameters design required for the designing of this. So this is one of the commonly used technology that is called the fused apposition modeling. This is one of the most popular technology. The reason is the cost. The cost of this technology starts with 10,000 rupees only. So you can have this on your desktop. So the process is very simple. I have a polymer material, thermoplastic material, which is put in the form of a spool. So this spool is fed into some liquefier chamber, right? So from this spool, through this liquefier chamber, the material is being deposited layer by layer. So actually, if you see the commercial printer, the dia of this feedstock filament is normally in the range of 1.75 mm, most commonly used size, but commercially these are available from 0.4 to 4.0 mm, right? So once this feedstock filament is fed into the liquefier chamber, right? So then there is a nozzle, and through this nozzle, this larger dia is basically converted into the smaller dia. Now, depending upon the nozzle, you can have the output as zero point 0.2, zero point 0.4, right? Sometimes it is 0.25 mm, right? So what we understand is the thick wire or the higher dia wire is being fed to through some feed mechanism into the liquefier head, and then I am getting a fine strand of wire, right? So once this is the fine strand of wire, which is there because of the high temperature as well as the mechanical feeding. This is just like a extrusion type mechanism. So I am getting the layer by layer deposition over here, right? So once the part is built, so this Z axis moves down, so I get a 3D printed part. Now you may have a question, why there are two color wires, one is dark blue and another is light blue color. The answer is, suppose I am interested in making some part like a cantilever. You can see this is the some extended part. Now to print this type of the part, typically in some sensor application, I need to for the stability, I need to put some sport over here, right? So this sport is basically water soluble, and the dark blue part is the oil soluble. So what we do is, once we print a component with a complex contour, right? So for that complex contour component, I need to add some sport, right? So once this sport is added, right, what we have to do is we just put this particular part into the ultrasonic cleaning chamber, where at around 65 degrees Celsius at 30 kilohertz frequency, we immerse this component into the water, and the whole water soluble sport is getting dissolved over there, and finally we get a finished component. So this is very common, most commonly used technique, right? Now I would like to show you some of the functional substrate that we can produce for adding, different values of epsilon r and tan delta into my patch antenna. And in this way, we can also help in the waste management in a big way, depending on the typical geographical locations you are working. You may be knowing that this thermoplastic material is really a issue with most of the countries, specifically in the developing nations like India. And from the waste management point of view, we are really interested to recycle these type of the materials, right? If I if I am able to recycle this material and add some value added product, this will be really going to help the country in a big way. So I have taken one example of ABS and PA6. These are the two very commonly used polymers, mostly used polymers for different mechanical engineering applications, different structural engineering applications, and even I have seen number of papers where people have used the ABS based thermoplastic and polyimide based thermoplastic for making some functional part. We can add some of the waste like a agri waste to increase some of the properties which can be having a serious effect on some typical antenna applications, right? As a sensor application. So we want to tune that, right? So in this particular example, we have reinforced the banana fiber. Why banana fibers? The reason is in a particular geographical location where we were actually working at that time, there was a lot of banana fibers available, and this can help me to add some value added product. So we are interested in their thermal, mechanical, and morphological characterization. So what actually we did, we used the banana fibers of 1000 micron length and diameter 100 micron cylindrical shape. There is a very good paper by Behreen et al. Which basically suggests that how to condition the banana fiber. So we followed that path, and we have a conditioned banana fibers which have been reinforced by weight into ABS and nylon. PSX is basically a nylon, right? We are interested in recycling of polymer as well as recycling of the agri waste, and then reinforcing the agri waste into the polymer waste to print some of the substrate. And we want to see what sort of the thermomechanical characterization effect is there, right? So this is the setup. This is a tabletop extruder, which we are calling as a twin screw extruder. This is a German-based Thermo Fisher company, which is basically making this extruder. Here you can see I have a two screws. Then I have a some manhole from where I can put the material. There is a heating chamber, and on this side the wire will come, right? So I have the input control of the temperature. This is totally computerized control machine. I have control of the nozzle dia because I am interested finally in the dia of the wire. I can control the torque and the RPM. So in this section, we will be preparing the feedstock filament, which will be fed into the 3D printer. So this is a typical 3D printer, low cost 3D printer, and I am interested in making some of the tensile coupons. So why we have made these type of the tensile coupons? Basically, these are as per ASTM D638. So once you have to compare some of the functional prototype, these has to be as per some standards, right? So these have been prepared using these type of the reinforcement. Now this is really important to understand from typical sensor application. This is basically a DSC based thermogram. DSC is basically a differential scanning calorimeter. I am interested in understanding to what temperature this type of material will be thermally stable. To understand in a simple way, let me give you one example. Suppose I go to the market and purchase two buckets, right? Two plastic buckets. One bucket I have put in my bathroom, and second bucket I have put on my rooftop. The bucket that has been put on the in the bathroom, you will observe that it may work quite good for a couple of years, maybe 2 years, maybe more than that. But the bucket that you have put on the rooftop, it may develop some crack, maybe after few days. The probable reason may be the excessive heating cycle and the cooling cycle. Like in the daytime, because of the excessive sunlight, there can be some thermal deformation. And similarly, in the night times, so there is a sharp change in the temperature. There is a low temperature, right? So because of that heating cooling cycle, there can be the thermal deformation, right? So now just imagine I have developed some antenna with a polymer substrate, which cannot withstand the temperature variation in that region. Basically, that antenna will be having some disintegration as regard to the structural component is concerned, and finally I will be getting the incorrect or the improper RF characteristics, right? So before using these type of material for some substrate application, we are really interested in their thermal stability. So you can see along the x-axis, I have from room temperature to 250, I am first heating. Over here you can see. Then from 250 to room temperature, this is cooling. Then from room temperature to 250, again heating. Then from 250 to room temperature, this is cooling. So basically heating, cooling cycle, right? So it is recommended normally to understand that particular material or the composite that we have developed, we must go for minimum 3 cycles, right? So also along the axis you can see some time is there. So there is a time lapse, right? So on the y-axis, what I am getting is I am getting the energy absorbed by that material in joule per gram, right? Now you see, once I am exposing my substrate to some temperature, so it is absorbing some heat in the heating cycle and it is releasing some heat in the cooling cycle. If the heat absorbed and the heat release is almost near to each other, we will say that this material is thermally stable to work in that particular range of the temperature, in that particular environmental condition, right? So this is really important for a sensor application. For that particular range where I am using, that material must be thermally stable. Otherwise, my performance will be really compromised. Now you can see here, once we were using a ABS material, you can see this is the curve for the ABS material. The maximum peak temperature earlier was 190, right? And once I put the banana fiber into it, this was increased from 190 to 212, right? So that means the thermal stability of the material was increased for another 12-degree rise in temperature, right? And once we observe that in the second cycle also, so this was almost similar. So 190.55, 190.12. So from the typical thermal engineering application, we consider this material as quite stable. So that means with the increase of the banana, with the addition of the banana fiber, the thermal stability was not compromised, right? And in the repetitive cycle, I am getting a similar type of results. And secondly, what I am getting is now the peak melting temperature is increased, so I can use that substrate for relatively higher temperature. Similarly, the trend was observed for the another substrate, that was polyimide, and polyimide reinforced with banana fiber. So you can see earlier with the virgin material, single material, it was 217. Now it is 225. So similar trend was observed in the second cycle. We are interested to see in repetitive cycle whether the thermal stability is there, and in heating and in cooling, if it is absorbing the similar range of energy in the heating cycle, and almost similar is being released in the cooling cycle, we consider that this is a thermally stable material. Then we try to see some of the mechanical properties like load, elongation, and we try to correlate it with the porosity level. This is really important because once you have a different level of porosity, it will be affecting your epsilon r, right? Because your permittivity, that is really responsible for getting a charge with respect to the charge in that capacity of the air, that is really dependent on the porosity. So for the typical sensor application, this has to be really controlled, right? So porosity with the different level of reinforcement, you can see earlier it was 48 with banana fiber, this was reduced to 11, and in case of polyimide it was reduced to 24, right? So this is really an advantage in terms of mechanical property, in terms of the porosity, because this will be helping us in the final gain of the antenna, right? So this is one basic example to as a case study that I have explained to you how we can print, how we can make a substrate for some typical functional as a functional prototype or the non-functional prototype. Functional prototype means that can be actually used for some application. Non-functional is just for the demonstration purpose. Now I'm interested in using, a combination of material through which I can have a different level of stimulus, and with that stimulus I am interested in some 4D application. Now how we are making this? This is one of the patent lying with us. We have used the simple physics principle. Now you can see over here, in this case, I have a multiple layer printing. This blue color layer, you can see this is a non-conducting layer. This is a conducting layer. This is a non-conducting layer. Then the conducting layer, and then the non-conducting layer. So just imagine, I have a printed, I have a thermoplastic spool. Let us say I printed the layer of the ABS, so which is basically non-conducting. Conducting means thermal and electrical conductivity is not there. Then what I did is I reinforced the graphene and the copper right into the ABS, and I printed a second layer. Right. So once the graphene is there or the copper is there, so there will be a conductivity. Then I have a third layer where again I have a insulating. Then I have another layer where I have a conducting. So multiple I am interested in printing alternative conducting, non-conducting, non-conducting, these type of the layers, right? So what actually we are doing is through microcontroller, I am putting the direction of the current in this way, right? Let us say the current direction is presently as per this diagram. So there will be formation of north and south, right? So if there is a north and south, and again in the successive layer there will be north and south. So once there will be north and south, like this way, just because of the flow of the current, there will be attraction. So once there will be attraction in all the layers, so basically my part is going to compress, right? Now if I am interested in expanding that part, I am basically changing the direction of the flow of the current. So here will be north, here will be south, here will be north, here will be south. So this south and south will repel. Now since once this will be the case, right, so I can basically use one stimulus, which is a current, and the direction of the current basically to either expand or contract my substrate. Now just imagine I am changing some current, direction of the current, value of the current, intensity of the current to some microcontroller, and my substrate is expanding or contracting. So once it is expanding or contracting, it will have a serious effect on my RF characteristics, right? So my typical sensor applications through this stimulus is controlled, and this is going to help me to make a 4D printed antenna. We are using actually this concept in typical heritage structure. I will show you in coming slides. There are some other applications where we can actually use this for the sensing purpose. Now, one of the typical application I'm trying to describe over here. You see, this is a setup for the ultrasonic machining of hard and tough material. So what we are using over here is, here there is a on the top you can see there is some electric input, then there is a transducer. Now this transducer is basically converting the electric input into the mechanical output, right? So now we can use this particular concept of developing our own transducer, right? So this transducer is being controlled through some controller. Just I am changing the direction of the current, right? Now if you see these commercial transducer, these are piezo based, right? But I can use a magnetic based transducer and can work on much higher temperature conditions, right? Then there is a some vibrations are produced because of the transducer. Then I have some design of this section where I can use a mechanical amplifier. Then there is a sonotrode, right? So at this junction I am getting the output in the range of 20 kilohertz, right? So ultrasonic vibration I am getting, right? So at this location, I am putting a tool which has been fastened to this surface, right? So this tool is now vibrating at the frequency of 20 kilohertz, right? Now what we are doing over here is there is a workpiece over here, and there is a gap between the tool and the workpiece. Now what I am doing is I am just putting the slurry in between this tool and the workpiece, and once the slurry particles, which is comprising of alumina or silicon carbide, they come in contact with the tool, because tool is vibrating at high frequency of 20 kilohertz, their momentum is increased to 2.5 lakh times. So with that high momentum, basically they strike with the workpiece, and we get a erosion over the surface, right? So I get a cavity. Basically, the replica of the tool is generated in the workpiece. So this is the conventional process. What we can do is we can make our own transducer, number one. Then we can also think of doing this some hybridization at this end. Actually, what we have done, this is the the top of the tool. We basically segregated this section into the three part. The first part was the you know uh, roughing zone. The second part was the semi finishing zone, and the third part was the super finishing zone. What actually we did is we printed a thermoplastic strip in the starting part where you are seeing the roughing zone. Basically we use the coarse grain of the alumina, right? Then in the semi finishing zone we use the relatively fine grains of alumina, and in the super finishing zone the super fine grains of alumina. Let us say in the starting section the grain size was maybe 100 microns. Then in the middle section it was the, let us say, the 80 microns. Then in the super finishing section it was maybe the 50 microns, right? Now once the tool is moving with a high frequency, and now this is getting in contact with the slurry particles, and then the slurry particles are moving down. So once the slurry particles are moving down, then the wall of that hole that is being created, it is first coming in contact with the rough section, then the semi finishing section, and the super finishing section. So there will be drilling as well as sort of a broaching together. So this is the hybrid process. In this way we can control more than one process simultaneously, right? So this is the one of the basic mechanical advantage of making these type of the components. Now, typical for the substrate application in the antenna, you see, we have a nozzle through which some thermoplastic is coming out. So my nozzle is circular. So once there is a feedstock filament that will be coming out of this nozzle, it will be resulting into the some elliptical part, right? So once I have a circular nozzle, the outcome is in the form of ellipse, right? This is basically because of the Baru effect, right? So there is a established reason for the sort of a conversion of the circular dia nozzle outcome into the ellipse part. So once there is a outcome like this, so I am depositing my material layer by layer, right? So once I am depositing my material layer by layer, so there will be air gap. So you can see over here, right? In typical printing language, we call it as a staircase effect, right? Now this adds to the porosity. So once you have a porosity in your sample, right? So this will be having a serious effect on the because of the porosity, there will be a serious effect on the application as regard to the sensor is concerned, because high porosity will really affecting the epsilon r and the tan delta, right, for your gain in the basically final antenna application, right? So what actually we did, this is one of the patent with us. We converted this circular section into the section like this. You can see over here I got some convex and concave combination. So once the nozzle is like this, so the material once come out from this, because of the Baru effect, it is becoming like this. So you get a flat surface like this. So once I am printing the layer, see this layer will be something like these triangles. Now I am interested in depositing the second layer, for my substrate, then basically this will be like an inverted triangle. There is a stepper motor which basically change the layer direction, so we get a better condition where the air gap is better filled, right? Actually, we are inspired for this technology based upon the color television. So this technology was initially introduced in case of the color television by Sony in mid 80s. uh, Once we have a, in a typical colored television, we have a silver screen, and on that silver screen, some electrons are being bombarded from some distance. So once there is a bombardment of the electrons on the silver screen, there is a formation of pixel. So the combination of pixel helps us to understand a particular picture. So the Sony came up with a technology in mid 80s where the pixels were not circular, but the pixels were like a triangle. The idea was that the standoff distance between the gun and the silver screen, the angle at which some electrons will be bombarded, right? Then the speed, these all combination helps us to get a outcome in the form of the triangular shape. So the basic benefit of this is with the combination of these type of the triangular structure, right? So you get a less air gap, less staircase effect. This substrate, once we will print, it will be having a better charge capacity because there will be better condition for the epsilon r, and of course the tan delta value will be more than 2. Now this is the another case. Once we have a, we are interested in controlling the substrate in a better way. We can think of the combination of nozzles. So I can have a one circular nozzle and another nozzle, something like this. So the final combination will be like this. So this is helping me to you know control the staircase effect in a better way. Even I can think of the nozzle printing parallel, maybe two nozzles. I have seen the printer where the parallel 10 nozzles were printing simultaneously. So I can increase my mass production in that way. Okay, now typical example I'm trying to share with you for the heritage structure. Now this is one of the heritage structure where we are using this for the sensing application, right? So this structure was built something in 1902. You may be knowing that as per CPWD, we have the categorization of the structures as grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Normally, the grade 1 structures are considered those structures which are really of the international importance, like the Taj Mahal. Then there are the grade 2 structures which are of course having a national importance, and these are being controlled by Archaeological Survey of India. These are under the state control or the government control or the respective uh, government of India or the state government control. Then we have the grade 3 structures which are basically not controlled by the government. These are normally the private structures, but these are having some importance as regard to the development of the society in that particular region is concerned. For basic experimentation, we selected this grade 3 structure because otherwise you have to take a lot of permissions and it is really difficult to get these type of the permissions. Now, what is the actual problem from where we are going to see these type of the sensor application? Just imagine this is the wall of the some heritage structure, and this size of the wall is not accessible to me. Suppose there is a crack like this, right? I can fill this crack with some epoxy type material, right? Now there is another situation when the entry side of the crack is large, but on the rear side the crack is small, right? Then even you can fill the epoxy. Then there is a third condition when the entry is small, but on the rear side, which is not accessible to me, the crack is large, and it may propagate in a big way in the upward direction as well as in the downward direction. Then what I will do for filling this type of the crack, and whether the crack has been filled properly, how I will get a information. So one of the basic thing is I can do some scan. We have a ultrasonic scanner, so we get a geometry of this component. So once I got a geometry of the component, I know the volume of the component, right? I know how much volume of the filler I have to fill into it. So we are basically using the smart filler, which will once inserted into this cavity will take the shape of the cavity. Just few slides back, I have given an example of you know a material which can be under the effect of magnetic field. I am changing the direction of the field. I can compact, I can expand. So once I am interested in filling this type of the material into the cavity, initially I will contract, insert into the cavity, and then I will change the direction of the magnetic field, right? So this is the two-way programming, and then it will take the shape of the cavity. Now once it is there, now I am interested in seeing getting the output as a sensor, whether the whole cavity is filled or not, right? So these are some of the heritage structures over which we are using these type of materials. This is these are the number of bridges that has been built during the British period, right? Now you see here, this lower part of the contour is under the compressive load, whereas the upper part is under the tensile load. But the whole structure is of a single material. Now if you just think of a combination of material which is having some compressive as well as some better tensile property, means multi-material printing, you can have a better output or the better life maintenance for this type of structure. So this is another heritage building. This name is the Sarai Laskari Khan, over which we are working from the Government of India and Government of Punjab side under the Shri project of DST. Now to put my point, as a multi-material printing, multi-material substrate printing, this is an example. We selected three different material. So one is HIPS. HIPS is high impact polystyrene. Another is the ABS, and third is the PLA. Now you see all these three materials have a wide difference in their MFI. MFI may be something new for some of us. Basically, we are interested in finding their melt flow index. There is a standard ASTM T1238 which basically suggests that if I put some defined quantity of the polymer into some barrel, then I apply a load, normally 2 to 3 kg, and at a particular temperature, then that wire is basically extruded into the fine wire form, and that fine wire I am using to print layer by layer over some surface, right? Now if this is the case, then actually what will happen, that fine deposition of the wire layer by layer is helping me to construct some part. If the MFI is more, I can basically make a thin section. If MFI is less, I cannot make a thin section, right? So basically, if you see the basic difference on the observed values, for HIPS it was 7.5, for ABS it was 8.7, and for the third case it was 13.52. That means if I am working on the same temperature condition for the printing of the substrate of HIPS or ABS or PLA, right? Then PLA substrate will be more fine as compared to the ABS and the HIPS. Now similarly, you can compare the properties like the Young modulus for the HIPS was 112, for the ABS it was better 175, and PLA it was the poorer. Right. Similarly, for the we have the observation for the yield stress from the glass transition, peak load, peak strength, peak elongation. So these type of properties actually we observe for once we select a particular substrate material for printing, right? So then we printed on a open source 3D printer. We have fixed some parameters like the dia of the nozzle, dia of the filament, layer height. We can fix the layer height. Then default printing, how many number of bottom and the top layers we are going to use. Then their infill pattern, at which pattern I can infill. Then their printing speed, perimeter speed, travel speed, extrusion temperature. These parameters around, you can see there are around 15 plus parameters that I can play on my software, right? So some of the parameters we kept fixed, and some of the parameters we try to vary, right? So what we did in this case is we varied the material combination, we varied the infill percentage, and we varied their printing speed. So what was there in the material combination like APH? APH means lowest layer of ABS, then the middle layer of PLA, and the top layer of HIPS, right? So we try to see if I print as a multi-material that particular substrate, how it is going to behave. Now this will be more clear from this picture. Here you can see the top layer of PLA, here the top layer of ABS, here the top layer of HIPS was printed. And we try to see their stress strain curve. Like in the previous case, we were trying to understand their thermal stability. Here also we try to see how this material is thermally stable. So you can see in the second heating cycle, the ABS was taking input 13.63 and the output was 13.52. So we can take that this material is more or less thermally stable. Once we see this for PLA, it was taking 14.71, but it was coming out with 10.80. So this is basically there is a serious threat on its thermal stability, right? Then on the hips, you see it is taking 11.7, and the output in the cooling cycle was 10.8. So it is better than the PLA, right? So PLA was the least thermally stable material. We try to see this effect from the room temperature to some high temperature, right? So similarly, we try to see the stress strain curve. So this is basically important, that how this material is going to behave under the particular loading condition. Now you see this is really important for the antenna engineer. I am interested in their photomicrographs. Here you see this is a photomicrograph for some material ABS that has been taken at the magnification of 30x. You can see there. You can see here there are some patches. These patches basically shows that the material has been deposited layer by layer. So one layer over the another layer, then another layer, then another layer. So I have a layer by layer deposition of the material. The similar thing you can see in PLA. There are some patches. So this is basically a staircase effect. Similarly, in hips, you can see there is a staircase effect. Now you see this picture. Here, the lowest layer was of ABS. Then over that I have printed PLA. Then over it I have printed hips. Now if I have printed the material like this, now this PLA has a side flow of the material. Right now, because of the side flow, you can see here is some globule formation. Because of this, the strength of the part is reduced. Now, if you just compare the figure 4, the lowest was PLA, intermediate was hips, then the ABS, there was no side flow. Now, if I compare their mechanical property, for the curve 1, you can see this was having a minimum area under the curve, so it will be having a minimum modulus of toughness. Whereas for the curve 4, you can see the area under the curve is really large, right? So this is the another important observation, like which material I have to print at the top, which material I have to print at the bottom, and I can select their combination, right? So this is the combination that is really helpful in printing some of the components. Now I'm going to tell you quickly how we will control the multi-material printing. So again, like the previous case, some of the samples have been printed in the form of tensile coupons as well as flexible coupons. Here we selected two materials. One was PLA and another was ABS, right? So I fixed some of the parameters of the printer, of the fused deposition molding printer, like the bed temperature, the nozzle temperature, infill percentage, infill speed, number of perimeters, raster angle, layer width, number of layers. These type of parameters have been kept fixed, right? So what we did actually, since I have to put 6 number of layers, we use the concept of the random numbers. So initially all the layers were of the single materials like P, 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 P. So means all the 6 layers were of PLA. Then in another experiment, all the 6 layers were of ABS, right? Then at random we selected that first layer of PLA followed by a layer of ABS, then PLA, then PLA, then ABS, then PLA. So similarly we observe at random without following any design of experiment what is the effect of different layer combination, right? So these are some of the samples were printed. We try to see their peak load, peak elongation, break load, break elongation, peak strength, break strength, and modulus of toughness. So this is basically a typical stress strain curve that we observe, and what we are trying to understand that this failure pattern is following some terminology. So what is that terminology? We introduced this first time in the area of additive manufacturing, that there is a concept called number of conversions and there is a concept of number of negative conversions. So if I control the number of conversions and number of negative conversions, basically I can predict the porosity, I can predict the strength, I can predict the behavior of that substrate under some defined loading condition, and how this is going to affect my RF characteristics, that we can also control. Like, so in this case, all the materials, all the layers were of a single materials like P, 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 P. So all were of the single material. So there is no conversion. Conversion means conversion of material from one to another. So all were of the single materials P, 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 P. So number of conversion is 0. Number of negative conversion is also 0. So in this case, there were 6 P's and there is no A. Then in second case, all were A's, A. So there is number of conversion 0, or 0 P and 6 A. Now you see the case number 3. So material is converting from P to A. This is first conversion. Then A to P, second conversion. Then here there is no conversion. Then P to A, third conversion. A to P, fourth conversion. So there were 4 conversions, right? Then what is negative conversion? Negative conversion means if I am depositing the ABS first and I am putting the PLA over it, right? So what will happen? The PLA will have a side flow because of the difference in the glass transition temperature of the material, right? So if the ABS is at the bottom and followed by the PLA, then there will be a side flow of the material. We are calling it as a negative conversion, right? So in this case, you see P to A is non-negative, A to P one negative, then here again A to P two negative. So there are two negative conversions. Then how many number of P's are there? So 1, 2, 3, 4 P's are there. And how many A's were there? 1 and 2, 2 A's were there. Right? Let us take some other example at serial number 10. So P to P no conversion, P to A 1 conversion, A to P 2 conversion, P to A there were 3 conversions. How many negative? There was only one negative because on ABS only one time there is a printing of the PLA over the ABS. So what we observe, if we have the combination of P's and A's, then that is number of conversions and number of negative conversions are there, right? If this is the case, then if I am interested in finally the strength of the material, the number of negative conversions should be minimum, followed by number of conversions, followed by P and followed by A. That means if you are interested in a dual material printing of your substrate for the strength point of view, what we observed in coordination with the experimental data that we have observed as regard to their mechanical property and porosity is concerned, A should be more, followed by P, followed by number of conversions, and number of negative conversions should be minimum. So if we follow this route, we will have a better substrate for our samples. We try to correlate it with their thermal properties, with their flexural properties, and we try to break those samples and see how this will behave. And we also try to correlate this with their microstructure and their porosity value and the surface finish value, because these are really important for my sensor application, right? So basically converting, calculating the number of A's, number of P's, number of negative conversions and number of conversions, this helps me in controlling the behavior of my material, right? Now this is another example for the 4D printed part where I can use some of the samples. Like I have already explained, I can use some stimulus like a magnetic field. I can use a stimulus like a load. I can have a stimulus in the form of light, in the form of electric magnetic field, in the form of some chemical energy, in the form of the temperature, or I can have the combination of the stimulus. Like I can have a hydrothermal stimulus, something like that. So that actually have some variation on this material. Now this is the typical example that I am going to show you for the preparation of the substrate for typical self-assembly application. Now this is the setup for the MFI that I was talking to you. Now here there is a barrel. I can put some material over here. I can control the temperature. I can control the load, and some wire is being extruded. So once I control my MFI, then I put my material in extruder. So once the material is fed over here, there is a intermeshing screws, and finally I get a feedstock filament. That feedstock filament or the wire I am putting into my 3D printer, and I am getting a 3D printed part. Now in this particular example, I have selected PLA as one material, PVC as the second material, then magnetite powder as the third material, and this is the wood dust basically as the fourth material. I am interested in reinforcing these four for making a hybrid, substrate, right? So PLA is basically used because of the biocompatibility. PVC again biocompatible, adds strength. Fe3O4 magnetite powder is basically to having a effect of the magnetic stimulus, and this wood dust has been used for the insulating property and as a replacement of wood or timber, right? So the reason is there. So we tried with the different combination. We used it on a extruder and try to optimize some of the parameters, and we try to see their magnetic properties, the typical BH curves. We are interested in their magnetization. Magnetization means how easily I can magnetize that material. Then corrosivity, right? If I am interested in making the effect of magnetic field zero, then in the opposite direction I have to apply the magnetic field, right? So then how much in the opposite direction I have to apply the magnetic field? So we measure the positivity, and once I switch off the magnetic field, how much magnetic effect will be there? That is in the term of the retentivity. So we try to measure this for this type of the combination of material. Did some parametric optimization, did there some SEM analysis, some EDS analysis, and we try to see their effect on their melt flow index by putting different proportion by weight 10, 15, 20, 25%, and similarly with the different variation of Fe3O4, different variation of the wood powder into it, and we try to see the effect on their mechanical properties. Like for the virgin material, what was there, then with the level of reinforcement, what is the change in their peak load, peak elongation, break elongation, peak strength, break strength, young modulus, then their stress strain value. We try to develop the stress strain curve, and we try to see the effect on the hardness, then their thermal stability like the previous case, then the in case of hybrid and multi-blended material, the substrate that we are getting, how much the effect of the stimulus will be there. So we try to see through their BH curve. So this is the way how we can make a 4D printable material, but only the difference is the effect of the stimulus. Now this is another example. We have reinforced ABS with graphene, right? So if you see, I have put the graphene into the ABS. So as I am increasing the graphene proportion, I got a trend in some melt flow index. Similarly, I got a trend for its thermal capacity. Like with the reinforcement of the graphene, the thermal capacity is increasing. So it can absorb more heat in joule per gram. Then we try to see the effect with the effect of the stimulus, that is the BSM, validation spectrum magnetometry, we use to measure the corrosivity, retentivity, and magnetization with the different reinforcement of the graphene. So how this substrate is going to behave once I will be having this effect, right? Now the application part. There is another example. We use a smart material of PVDF, and to increase its piezo property as a smart material, this barium titanate and graphene was reinforced into it, right? So we tried with the initially with the 98% PVDF, we put some graphene and some barium titanate was put into it. We did some parametric optimization, and we try to see the effect on peak strength, break strength, modulus of toughness, the stress strain curve were observed, the thermal stability values were observed. Then we try to print the component, and we try to see what is the effect of the piezoelectric constant. So D33 was measured, so we were able to get around 20 picocoulomb per Newton. This is very good for the self-assembly application, right? There is another example, typically for the sensors. So ZNO nanoparticles were reinforced into the PLA, and we are interested in their thermal, mechanical, morphological, and shape memory effect. Now this will be more clear from this picture. So I have a ZNO nanoparticles that were put into extruder. So some feedstock filament was prepared. That feedstock filament put into printer for printing some of the components. This is the picture for the thermal stability value. Then once I add ZNO in different proportion, 1%, 2%, I can tune this material for the better thermal stability. Now this will be important to understand. So I printed a component like U, right? So I try to see what is the effect of water as a stimulus. So basically for 5 hours I put that material in water, and after 5 hours we try to see what is the volumetric change. Then putting it for 5 hours at 25 degrees Celsius temperature, we try to see how much change in shape is there. Basically, it is either this U is getting rotated into the V, or the outer face is sort of there is the inward movement, right? So what we observe, if in place of the 25 degrees Celsius temperature we work on 40 degrees Celsius temperature, there is a better recovery of around 99.64%. So this material is under typical effect of the hydrothermal stimulus, right? So there is the effect of the moisture, there is the effect of the temperature. So we try to see the similar effect at low temperature and at its glass transition temperature. So we were able to get a recovery up to 99.8, in some of the cases even 99.9%. So now if the material shape is changing with some stimulus, now you just think of that shape changing material. You are really interested in 4D property of the antenna, so we can change that property of the substrate. So we try to see why this change is there. So for that purpose, we try to measure its porosity, and what we observed, there was a significant effect on the porosity of that particular substrate. Now, before I conclude, just I want to share with you one of the example of actually printing of the 3D printed patch antenna. Here we try to use the thermoplastic and thermosetting based 3D printed patch antenna. So one of the typical waste that is called LDP, that is low density polyethylene, has been used, right? And we try to reinforce with the bakelite, which is a thermosetting material. Why we are using bakelite? Basically, if I add the bakelite into a thermoplastic material, its thermal stability is increasing exponentially, right? You just imagine, I'm interested in making some tea in my kitchen, so I use a pan. So the basically the to hold a pan, I have a link on which some bakelite shield is there, right? So basically, if you heat that pan number of times, every time the bakelite cover is getting more and more strength, it is becoming more and more thermal stable. So if I make an antenna or a sensor with the reinforcement of bakelite or thermosetting material, basically this is going to be thermally stable in each and every cycle that we have seen in the DSC analysis. So in this to make this type of the material, we started initially with the 100% thermoplastic, and we got a MFI of 12.2. Then we go on reinforcing the bakelite by weight percentage. So we were able to have this proportion up to 7.5%, and the MFI was there 9.65. But what we observed, with the higher proportion of the bakelite, even at 7.5%, and the material was so brittle that its spoolability was compromised, so we can actually not able to print that part, right? So we tried with the different processing condition on my extruder, and we try to see what is the effect of the processing condition on the peak elongation, peak strength, break elongation, break strength, Young modulus, and modulus of toughness, these type of the property. This is a typical stress strain curve we get for this type of the material. You can see this is the spool that is prepared from a twin screw extruder. Now this is some printing going on for the printing of the patch. So these are some. This is a virgin LDPE. This is LDPE reinforced with bakelite. Then we used a typical ring resonator test. So there is a standard test for tuning of our antenna, right? So the samples were printed. Then on the this face and on the reverse face, copper tape was put over there. Then connectors were attached to it. We try to see the effect on the VNA, and we observed the peak, first peak at 2.75 and 5.28. And once we add the bakelite into it, this peak was shifted to the right, so 2.8 to 5.72. Right, so we are interested in making a antenna up to 2.45 gigahertz frequency. So we selected initially the epsilon r value of 3, and we calculated the using this VNA analysis. We calculated that the electric constant of this material was coming to 2.2 and 2.0 for the combination, and based upon typical VNA analysis, we basically calculated the dimension of the patch in the form of width and length. But we observed, once I add the bakelite into it, there was a marginal increase in the dimension. You can see earlier it was 40 and 47. Now it was increased to 42 and 49. Right? At using the HFSS, we try to find out the performance, and we were able to get the result very close to 2.45, and even the gain was really good. This was something around 4 in both cases. But the advantage that we get with the reinforcement of bakelite was that we were able to basically increase the thermal capacity, right? The size was marginally increased in 1 or 2 mm is quite simple for us, right? But it can work at relatively very high temperature. So that is one of the advantage that we get out of this work. So these are some of the observations from this. That's all I want to share with all of you. Now I am open for any questions if you want. Anybody, any query I would like to answer. So dear friend, anybody, any query? Yes, please. Any queries, please? Anybody, any query? Is it clear to everyone what I have tried to show? Yes, please. Is it okay to everyone?
Yes, anyone have any questions, then they can ask now.
Yes, sir, it was fine.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, if dear friends, you have further queries, you can always uh, write a mail to me. I will be really happy to answer some of the queries if I can answer. The basic idea is to develop my own material with desired properties, with tunable properties for 3D and 4D applications. And as a typical material processing person, we are interested in the end product, right? In this case, the end product is a sensor which can transmit or receive some of the signals, and we are interested in tuning this. I can think of this type of 4D antenna for typical spy applications, right? And a lot of people are working in this area with a single material or multi-material printing for the development of these things. Well, if there are no queries, I will
Sir,
be really
sir, we shall be thankful to you if your PPTs are provided through Balwinder, sir.
yes, sure.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So you can write to in chat also if you have some point to ask. I would be really happy to answer.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, if we don't have license copy of HFSS or CSD tool, can we approach NITs or IITs to get that access to the server, their own server?
Well, for some other institute I cannot comment, but for NITR, yes, you can.
Okay, sir.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, friends, if there are no more queries, let me thank you all for your patient hearing. Thank you, Media Engineering Cell, for giving me an opportunity. I think for the participants now, we can take a break and can come back again for as per schedule. Thank you very much. Thank you, Harjot, for this support.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Rupinder sir. Now participants will reassemble at 11:30 for next session.